You ever have one of those days where a stranger's perfume hits you like a punch to the nose, just as you're about to find out your family's entire legacy is dangling on a thread? Yemi's story starts like that. Sir, step away from the water right now, or I'm calling the police for trespassing. That's Cordelia Ashworth, HOA, president, queen of serenity, and apparently judge, jury, and executioner of who gets to breathe mountain air on the wrong side of her electronic gate. I looked her straight in the eye, holding up my great-grandfather's deed like a holy relic. Ma'am, you're threatening to arrest me for using water I own every drop of. You know what I mean? That lake, Lake Serenity 3, 100 acres of water ringed with mansions and powerboats, was passed down to me with a 1923 deed signed by President Calvin Coolidge himself. I'm holding the actual document. Meanwhile, behind Cordelia's illegal gate, hundreds of million-dollar homes, all built on the assumption that the lake was just part of the deal. Nobody thought twice about water rights because, well, the old Callahan family hadn't been around to stop them. Joke's on them, I guess. Let me back up a sec. My name's Ezra Callahan, third-generation land surveyor. Thought I was inheriting peace and quiet, not a war. My great-granddad, Thomas, bought this land during the mining boom, claimed every drop of that lake. I still remember mornings up here, mist rising off the water, loons calling like they're ringing the church bells of nature itself. After my divorce, this place felt like a lifeline, fresh start, clean mountain air, a chance to get back to who I used to be. Instead, I got Cordelia and her army of rules. The trouble started back in the 80s when Magnus Properties showed up and started selling off the shoreline, building luxury cabins turned weekend getaways into six-figure permanent homes. By the 90s, the Serenity Shores Homeowners Association was born. Now, 847 homeowners pay $340 a month, and the place is crawling with BMWs and Audis. Cordelia? She's run this HOA for 8 years. Drives a white BMW X7 with vanity plates Serenity 1 and a silver bob that doesn't move in the wind. She's got a community standards manual thicker than my surveying textbooks. First warning sign? The old dirt road into the lake replaced by an electronic gate, cameras, a security guard who couldn't be older than my toolbox. Sorry, sir, private property. That's when Cordelia glided up, heels clicking, eyes scanning my flannel and muddy boots with a look that said, "You don't belong here." She suggested maybe I'd be more comfortable at the public access point, 30 miles south. We've had issues with undesirable elements, she said, perfume practically choking out the scent of pine. So I did what any stubborn surveyor would do. I pulled out my great-granddad's deed and explained I own the water rights. She glanced at that document like it was a grocery receipt. That doesn't supersede our community standards, she said. Her guard was already reaching for his radio, and I figured, fine, let's not make a scene today. Then I spotted construction crews down by the lake, pouring concrete, building a boat launch right into my property. That's when I realized these folks had no idea how many mistakes they were about to make. 3 days later, I get a certified letter, cease and desist, threatening $5,000 daily fines for unauthorized lake access. Cordelia had gone full nuclear, hiring Peton, Walsh & Associates, a law firm famous for their ability to make you question your right to breathe. They claimed the HOA had adverse possession rights because they'd been using my lake for 40 years. That's the legal version of, if I steal your car long enough, eventually it's mine. Yeah, that happened. Time to visit my favorite office, the courthouse basement. Among the dusty files, I found gold. The original land patent signed by Coolidge, giving Thomas Callahan all water within the property boundaries. Not just access all of it. Meanwhile, every single HOA deed, every single lot, carried the same clause, subject to existing easements and water rights. Magnus Properties never kept water rights, never transferred any to the HOA. These folks had bought property with a giant asterisk. Martha, the county clerk, Nearly fell out of her chair laughing. Third water rights case this year, she said, shaking her head. These HOAs think gates equal ownership. Spoiler, they don't. I documented everything. Illegal no trespassing signs, unauthorized boat launches, construction in protected wetland photographed, GPSed, mapped. But here's the twist. They collected $75 million in lake access fees over 37 years for water they never owned. I filed complaints with the county water board and looped in the local newspaper. The next day, Cordelia called an emergency HOA meeting. Homeowners started whispering. Security got ramped up, and a college kid named Jake was hired as an extra guard, asked more about surveying careers than about my supposed trespassing. Cordelia passed out flyers calling me a legal predator. I could see the paranoia spread from across the lake, binoculars in hand. Every day, diesel engines tore up more shoreline, pouring concrete, destroying century-old habitat. My family's patience was legendary. Every new sign, every concrete pour, every intimidation attempt, I logged it all. They thought they could scare me away with a stack of legal threats. What they really gave me was a treasure trove of evidence. Cordelia's next move? Flyers. Emergency meetings. Even had a telephoto shot of me on the invite. Protect our community from outside legal predators. From undesirable element to legal predator, I was moving up in the world. But then, the cavalry arrived in the form of a retired contracts attorney named Griffin Mohouse. Guy's got the weathered look of someone who survived decades in the courtroom. He shows up at my cabin, folder in hand, says, "I owe you an apology. I should have checked those water rights when I bought my place." Turns out, he's on my side, and more importantly, he's fascinated by Western water law. Griffin dug into the legal mess, confirmed what I already knew. First in time, first in right. My family's claim predates the HOA, trumps everything after. More importantly, adverse possession doesn't apply when you never had the right in the first place. He offered to review my documentation pro bono. That's when I started my own quiet protest 6:00 a.m. Daily visits with a folding chair, fishing pole, and surveyor's transit setup right at the water's edge. Jake, the security guard, confided, "MS. Ashworth called 3 times before breakfast, wanted to know what you were planning." I told him, "Just catching up on some reading and a little fishing." Cordelia showed up in her REI hiking getup, probably tag still on. "This harassment has to stop," she yelled. I just smiled and asked if she wanted to see my GPS readings. Her face went from burgundy to beet red. That's when the sheriff's deputy showed up, responding to another of Cordelia's dangerous trespasser calls. I handed over my deed, Griffin's legal summary, 3 weeks of documentation. Deputy read it all, looked at Cordelia, and said, "Ma'am, this gentleman has every legal right to be here. You might want to get legal advice." Cordelia stormed off, muttering about community standards. But the real twist? Someone started a Facebook group, Serenity Shores, truth posting leaked HOA meeting minutes, legal confusion, resignations. Cordelia's grip was slipping. Meanwhile, the HOA tried blocking my access, dumping gravel, parking bulldozers, destroying wetland habitat. I called State Fish and Wildlife. Inspector Janet Kowalski showed up with a camera, looked around, and said, $50,000 fine, minimum $5,000 a day until restoration. And I'm referring this to the Army Corps for possible criminal charges. Then came an unexpected ally to Bias Creek. The local fishing guide offered his boat so I could document damage from every angle. From his pontoon, I caught photos of spawning grounds turned into muddy pits. Homeowners, scared of HOA retaliation, quietly asked for advice. Emergency meetings now happened, almost nightly panic about legal costs, insurance, environmental fines, all hitting at once. Cordelia, feeling the heat, called Channel 7 News to paint herself as the victim of environmental terrorism. Reporter Helena Vasquez arrived just in time for Inspector Kowalski to serve violation notice on live TV. Cordelia's meltdown went viral. Headlines read, HOA president melts down during federal raid. Property values dropped 8% in 3 weeks. All the while, Griffin found the nuclear bomb, HOA records showing $75 million in fraudulent access fees. Ongoing scheme, no statute of limitations. You could bankrupt them all, he said. But as I sat in that courthouse basement, surrounded by evidence, I realized this wasn't about revenge. Most homeowners weren't in on the scam. They just trusted the system. I wanted Cordelia exposed, the community protected, and my rights restored. So we built a strategy document every violation, trigger every agency, let Cordelia's paranoia do the rest. Our secret weapon? Mike Peterson, the construction foreman. Cordelia had offered him cash bonuses to make my life miserable, block my access, even damage my truck. Mike documented every order, every text, every accidental obstruction. When an inspector caught them red-handed, fines doubled now. The HOA was facing bankruptcy. Cordelia, out of options, went nuclear online fake Facebook accounts, slander campaigns, calling me a terrorist, a scam artist, a predator. But she's no tech wizard. The IP address traced right back to her mansion. Reporter Vasquez blew it up on the news. Emergency meetings, resignations, petitions. Homeowners revolted. Cordelia tried locking the community center before the annual meeting. The sheriff had to escort her away as she screamed about terrorist infiltration. October 14th, annual meeting. Room packed, 347 homeowners, reporters, inspectors, law enforcement. Cordelia strutted in, still thinking she'd talk her way out. She started with her final word, claiming the HOA owned the water, blaming outside agitators, downplaying environmental crimes. But when Inspector Kowalski took the mic, it was all over. She announced criminal charges, showed evidence of deliberate wetland destruction, detailed $200,000 in fines. Griffin followed, projecting 37 years of fraudulent fees, $75 million on the big screen. Cordelia, Snap tried to grab the mic, accused everyone of conspiracy. Deputy Martinez calmly cuffed her and walked her out as cell phones flashed. And then, for the first time, I took the floor, showed the original deed, explained I could sue, bankrupt the HOA, and lock everyone out. But I didn't. Instead, I offered a 99-year lease for $1 a year on the condition of environmental restoration, public fishing access, and a fresh start. The vote was unanimous. 6 months later, Lake Serenity was reborn. The old HOA office became an environmental education center. Wetlands restored, property values climbed. Kids fished from the new community pier. Cordelia sold her mansion to pay off her fines. Mike Peterson became a hero. Jake, the security guard, is now studying environmental law. I built my own cabin on the hill, drink coffee every morning as the mist rises off the lake, and listen to the loons sing. The real legacy isn't a legal victory, it's a healed community that learned the price of trust and the power of standing up to bullies. So let's settle it. Here, what would you have done? Is justice about destroying your enemies or finding a way forward? Drop your thoughts in the comments, share your own story if you've tangled with HOAs, property rights, or just plain stubbornness. And hey, if you think this is wild, wait until you hear what happened when I caught my neighbor stealing electricity for 3 years straight. But that's a story for another day.